Let's begin the negotiate step with a simple question. What's the most common mistake salespeople make during negotiation? Do we A. minimize the objection and push ahead, B. mistake objections as personal rejection, C. let an objection become a roadblock, or D. become combative and try to prove your customer wrong? Each of these points is a valid topic for discussion. Which one do you think is the most common mistake made? A, B, C, or D?
You know, in most selling situations, there's some negotiation that has to take place. We define negotiation as working out the problems that keep people from buying when they want to buy. And the key to it is when they want to buy. And so if I'm at a position that someone says, I like what you're recommending, I know it will do what I want it to do, but I have a problem. Now, the problem may be the price or the terms or the delivery or it can be any number of things. But then I'm in a position to negotiate.
Well, someone asked me some time ago, are you a good negotiator? And I know it's something I've always looked at from afar and said, I want to be a good negotiator, you know. And then I realized once I was exposed to integrity selling that it is just solving problems.
Integrity selling kind of gave me a new outlook on negotiating, because really if you asked the appropriate questions and you had your discussion correctly in the beginning, the negotiation should never be difficult. So with that different outlook, that was my aha moment. I said, wow, geez, I need to do a more proficient job at asking the right questions, not only to sell a product, but to make sure that there aren't any issues later on, especially after our discussion.
A lot of salespeople will say, you shouldn't think for your clients, which you shouldn't, and you certainly shouldn't throw out something that could potentially be a negative. But I would much rather get it out there on the table and talk about it than have them wonder about it later. People can deal with what they know. Okay? If they don't know it, they don't like being surprised. So it's always best to talk about it.
I can approach negotiation either as a manipulative thing that I'm going to convince you you're wrong and I'm going to dominate you and I'm going to persuade you and change your mind. Or I can approach negotiation by trying to understand what your concerns are and what your problems are, and then to see if we can solve them. Now what we know is that if I approach it from a standpoint of saying, I want to understand your concerns and I want to listen to them, I want to understand why you feel that way, and I want to understand what you think some possible solutions are. What we know is that there's powerful persuasion in that.
The most powerful form of persuasion is to understand, listen and understand. You can truly persuade people to come to the table, to come even to your side when you truly attempt to understand them.
A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
It's sort of like common sense. It's like you're not going to be able to convince somebody that this is okay unless you dig out the objections and that they feel satisfied. So they're just going through a process in their own mind to make themselves feel comfortable. And this is me talking to me. When I talk to me like that, I go like, it's okay, they can do that. Let's just go through this. And I don't take it quite as personally. Now, I'm not always quite as rational as I just sounded. In the heat of a big discussion, sometimes I do take it personally, and sometimes I do internally get angry. And that's not good, and I have to continue to learn that.
You have to take the ego out of the negotiation process, because if ego is involved, it's going to get in the way. You're not going to hear the customer. You're not going to address the customer's needs, and you're not going to address the customer's expectations in the negotiation process.
It has nothing to do with me versus my clients. It's all of us saying, what makes sense here?
And really connecting with them, not being opposed to them, but with them, having empathy.
I try to mentally slow down, because I think a lot of times our initial reaction is to jump on them, you know, or prove that they're wrong or whatever. But I think it's important to rephrase it so that we're all on the same page.
I would generally like to find if there's an objection about something specific, you know, a product or or some type of investment, I'd like to know as soon as possible. So I don't fear bringing that out because I think it just gets you closer to an ultimate solution quicker.
In conclusion, let's find out the answer to our opening question. What is the most common mistake salespeople make during negotiation? You probably figured out that each one of those responses is a negotiation mistake. So which one is the most common? Well, the truth is, it will depend on your behavior style.